Welcome, Gunrunner.
Hello everybody, Kieran aka The Laird here, and I have another book review for you, and it's another one of my Christmas collection of books that my wife gifted me for Christmas last Christmas. She's got me lots of books, which is always good when we're all locked down and we have nothing to do. And when we're sitting at home, we can sit and read. We always sit and read more books. I know this because my own books have been selling incredibly well. I'm selling 4 times as many as I was this time last year. Year on year, really, I'm up about 4 times. So that just shows how many people are buying books at the moment. Good indicator because we're all at home and we have nothing else to do. This one is playing with Power, Nintendo NES Classics. This has been out quite a few years, and I actually remember seeing this in The Works. And for those who don't know, The Works is like mainly a bookshop that sells like stationery and some odd toys and gifts and stuff like that in the UK. But everything is like really cheap, so it's almost like clearance. A lot of the stuff in it is clearance stuff. Really good. I'm a big fan of The Works because every time you go in there, they have completely different stuff. So it's always really interesting getting in there, having a look. And actually, I've picked up a lot of books in The Works that I've reviewed on my channel. But they had this quite cheap at one point. I ummed and ahed over whether to get it. Then I decided I would, and when I went back, they didn't have any. So my fault. But then I've ended up getting it anyway because my wife picked it up with, these other books for Christmas. So that was cool. So this is a hardback book, as you can see. The system that started it all. We don't look at the back cover quickly. So nostalgic look back on 17 NES Classics. 17 is a strange, arbitrary number, isn't it? Get a glimpse behind the scenes with Shigeru Miyamoto and embark on a journey through the legendary periods of video game history, featuring a showcase of vintage excerpts from Nintendo Power magazine, plus maps, character art, and extras. This is a must-have for the Nintendo fan. So it's originally £20. I think when the Works had it, I think they had it at £7. I seem to remember. So it can probably be picked up pretty cheap online still now. So let's have a look. Let's have a look through it. So we go. Forward by someone who was called Don James. Apparently he was Executive Vice President of Operations at Nintendo America. Can't say I've heard of him, but I'm sure he's got some pretty good insight if he was at Nintendo. I've just noticed actually, first of all, to mention this, is the paper quality is terrible. It's really, really cheap paper quality. It's really thin. I don't know if you can really see it, particularly on camera, but it's really, really thin. It's not very well binded either. And I'm guessing that's probably one reason why they all ended up in The Works reduced, because the cover's lovely, but the quality of the pages inside is actually really, really poor. The print is quite inconsistent, which you quite often see, with cheap paper, where some of it's a bit faded, some of it's brighter. The ink isn't consistent across the pages. It's inside the NES, the launch games. So you've got Excite by Ice Climber, probably one of my favourite NES games, as long as you play it with a second player. My next door neighbour had an NES when I was a kid. It's the only person I knew with an NES actually. And they had an NES and he had Ice Climber, and we played that game far more than any other. Brilliant, love Ice Climber. So much nostalgia for that game, absolutely love it. So it gives you an overview of the game, tricks and tips, stuff about them. But a lot of these games are very well known. So obviously Super Mario Brothers, that's probably going to be stuff that everyone knows really. So the early period, 1986, more about some of the games. So it does cover some other stuff like Balloon Fight, which is more obscure. Donkey Kong, I think everyone's going to know that kind of stuff. A look inside the game packs that tells you a little bit about them. The original Mario Brothers. The middle period, so there's some more games there, like Metroid, Pro Wrestling, Volleyball, stuff like that. Kid Icarus. It's quite a big one. There's Metroid. Classified information. Legends of Zelda there. So that's a big one, as you can imagine, because it's got maps and everything. I think that's the biggest entry in the book. Now the book's falling down. Punch Out, otherwise known as Mike Tyson's Punch Out. There's Mario 2, Mario 3's in here. That's another big one. Shigeru Miyamoto. There, go back a page, so skip that. So, about him talking about making Mario Brothers 3. Zelda 2. Controversial one, a lot of people don't like Zelda 2. I thought it was alright actually, and I'm not a massive Zelda fan. Late period Snake Rattle and Roll. I loved that game actually. My friend had that. That was good. Dr. Mario, one of my favourite NES games. Loved Dr. Mario so much. And I mainly used to playing it on the Game Boy actually. Pinball. I love Pinball. That's good. I like any pinball games. So there's Mario Brothers 3. I said that was in the book as well, didn't I? Preempted that one. So I'm not going to go through all that. That's another really long one. Counsellor's Corner. So that's a bit like when you used to ring up those lines to ask how to play games for tips and cheats, and they charge you like £1 a minute. Bunch of Nintendo Power magazine, I think, had a bit where you could write in as well, and the counsellors would give you answers similar to the lines that you rang up. I can't say I'm not massively familiar with Nintendo Power magazine because it was an American thing. We didn't have it in the UK. The NES wasn't massively popular over here, so we didn't have a magazine till they did the official one. What was it called? Nintendo Magazine System, but obviously that didn't just cover the NES, it covered the Game Boy and the SNES as well. Cobra's Adventure. I think that's just about it. Yeah. And then there's a little bit at the back about NES peripherals there. So that's it. Yeah, so as a book goes, it's kind of all right. I'm not a huge Nintendo fan, as many people will know. So it's not exactly the kind of book that appeals to me massively anyway, which I think is one of the reasons why I ummed and ahed over it so much actually when I first saw it in the works. But I think my main problems with the book are that one, that the page quality is so bad. I know I've said it already, but I can't just emphasise how bad it is. It's not just the cheap quality pages, but they all feel like they're going to come out any minute because the binding's so awful as well. And the inconsistent ink quality and stuff, and they even feel horrible just to touch them. I'm not sure how many pages it is. It'll probably be quite big because of how thin the pages are. So we're talking 320 pages. There we go. So there is a lot of pages. There is a lot of content. But, you know, that leads me on to the second thing is that I can't help but think that you would have seen, you know, if you're a big Nintendo fan, then I think you would have seen this comment, this kind of content before. Like, everybody knows the history of the NES, which actually misses out quite a lot of the more interesting stuff about its history, about the failed test market and the negotiations with Atari and things like that. So it's a very basic history. It leaves out, I think, all the most interesting stuff about the NES, and it doesn't really mention a lot about the cool Japanese stuff as well, like the Famicom Disk System and things like that. So it's very paint by numbers. It's all going to be stuff you've seen and heard before. Everybody knows about Bloody Mario. Everyone knows about the Zapper gun. Everyone knows about Zelda. These are things that have been covered to death. There is a few, I suppose, more obscure stuff in there, like I mentioned, Balloon Kid, but nothing that's really going to blow you away, because it's all the official Nintendo stuff. So you're not going to get any, curiosities in there, like games that were only released in Japan, or, games that only come out in PAL or anything like that. If you want something more in depth about Nintendo, then the book you actually want is the new NES A to Z by Brett Weiss. He's done, I think he split it into two, like he did with his SNES books that I previously reviewed on my channel, the A to Z of Super Nintendo books. He did split that into 2 volumes because there was just literally so many games, and he's done the same with the NES. And again, I've contributed some stories to those books. Like my memories, I talked about Ice Climber, playing it around my friend's house, and Pinbot. I put in a really good story about Pinbot actually. So wait for those to come out. There is a lot of NES books out there already. There's the Visual Compendium from Bitmap Books. There's the one that Pat Contry did, his guide to the NES, which wasn't a great book either, far too expensive for what it was. But I'd say the upcoming one from Brett Weiss is the one you want to be getting if you're a fan of the NES. It's not a cheap book, but it's big, it's hardback, it has all the big industry names contributing to it and all the best stories and write-ups, including all the really obscure stuff, because it literally covers every game that was released in North America. So that's the one you want. I'd only recommend this if you see it's stupidly cheap, because the print quality is terrible. It doesn't tell you anything you don't already know, and it's obviously quite limited in what it does tell you. But I hope you enjoyed this video anyway, and I'll see you all again for another one very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.